Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. And well, a lot of action going on today. Unfortunately, I missed a little bit of that action last week, but happy to be back in South Florida where it's nice, sunny, shiny, beautiful weather.
I was just about to say, Ron, you look a lot different than when I saw you on Monday.
Nice, touche, touche. It's good to be back here, though. Obviously, was in Maryland last weekend, and it feels like
Obviously?
Well, I was in Maryland this past weekend for Barbara Fritchie and General
Who could tell?
George.
With all the clothes you were wearing on there, we could barely tell it was you.
I had to go into my sister's closet and steal some of her hats.
So we heard on Twitter.
Yeah, we put that on Twitter. So it was a fun weekend, though, but happy to be back in South Florida. Lots happened since I've been gone. We have a huge carryover in the Pick 6. We have a huge carryover in that rolling Super High 5 as well, and an excellent racing car today, 10 races on tap.
It was basically a 6-day party without you here, actually, last week. Now that you're back, things are going to get much more serious. I guess we were talking about the Super High 5. It wasn't hit, and there was a substantial carryover after race 10, and I guess there wasn't one in race number 11, and with a big field in the last race, and the favorites getting absolutely nothing in there.
I believe the exacta was 8-1, 35-1 shot, so it was kind of hard to really get the Super High 5 in the last race. So we do have a big carryover to start. Actually, in today's second race, race 1 today will not start the Super High 5.
Good to point out, but there will be a big pool in race number 2, as a lot of money is going to come into that pool. No doubt about that. The scratch in the first race affected me as well, Gabby. Scratched my top choice.
Absolutely. Taking a look at our featured wagers here, though. Race 1 still kicks off the early Pick 5. Race 2 starts the rolling Super High 5, as we just mentioned, just shy of $60,000. And it's kind of a short field in there. I would imagine they're going to heavily bet that. Today on the 10th race, on this 10-race program, the Pick 6 starts in race 5, $1.15 million. Continues to grow. I forget what it was when I left, but they've really been pouring the money into that wager, which is definitely the usual there for the Rainbow Pick 6. And race 6 today starts the late 50-cent Pick 5. Taking a look at the card today, I believe you came up with an early Pick 5 ticket.
I did. Unfortunately, my top choice was scratched out of 2 of the legs. The 7-horse in race number 5, who, I think would have been on everybody's tickets. So I'll substitute the 1 in the first race, go 1-6 to start it out, $36 play, and we'll talk about this as we go on. And that seems to be the case, a lot of 6s in my tickets, at least 3 6s. I've always got a lot of 6s. Dennis's number is the 5.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Dennis is betting the 5 last week because the 5 was winning at big prices, so he was telling me he had a lot of those horses.
What does 666 mean?
Well, speak for yourself.
And the fact that you like it. Okay, well, we'll take a look at some replays here. The 4 Corinthians Glory is one of them. Skippy is Back comes out of the same race, so we'll open the show with this replay. And these horses, especially the 4 Corinthians Glory, should be well bet here today.
Yeah, I prefer the 6, like a lot of people, as we try to get that replay. I know Corinthians Glory made the big run. I'm going to try Skippy is Back. I think one thing that would keep note of, Skippy is Back has a big pace advantage on this field. Now, be interesting to see how the track is playing, because the last 3 days, at the very least, we had a dead rail here. And a lot of the riders eventually became aware of it. Hopefully Edgar Zayas is aware of it. On the other hand, we've had a day off from racing. The track's aware of it as well. And it'll be interesting to see how the track is playing today and if we have the same kind of racetrack. If we have a fair racetrack, this horse is going to have an advantage for sure. And it's not like speed was bad. You just didn't want to be on the rail. And I think Skippy is Back tactically is going to have a big edge.
Okay, I prefer her over the 4 Corinthians Glory here as well. I actually threw out Corinthians Glory, although she did make that nice willing move from off the pace. I just don't know if she's going to get the same type of setup as she did last time. I went with a flyer in the opener here. Gets in with a 10-pound weight apprentice here, the 5 Flashy Z. I just think that she's been close in the past couple of starts, especially her past 2 starts. Going against the same company, I want a fresh face. I didn't really like Corinthians Glory. Skippy is Back could win on the lead, but I do think that she's going to show a little bit more speed than what she's been showing lately, getting in with this light weight. When she was running at Monmouth, she was a little bit closer to the pace, and it seemed like that's her preferred running style, and I just hope that's the case here today.
Okay. I'm not knocking long shots.
Yeah, I mean,
there was the 10-pound bug rider. It's kind of hard to take, but I hear you.
The
Listen,
lightweight,
they have to win sometimes.
The one Candy's Lady, this is another one who recently won last time out. Another Javier.
I agree. It's not a strong field.
It's not a strong field. And some of these horses who are coming back, I feel like they were kind of lucky to win last time out. Can they duplicate it again? So I'm just going with the fresh face at a nice price.
Listen, I'm disappointed the 3 was scratched. Anytime my top choice is scratched from a race, I sort of end up with horses I was filling, not always, but frequently in this case, I was filling in behind the 3.
Okay, well, we'll move on to race 2 at 12,500 non-winners, a 2 lifetime event, 6 furlongs on the main track. Just have 1 scratch. Orlando Boca Chica on the 1, changing direction. We'll go back and take a look at the 4 Tailstone's most recent effort. Bet down to the heavy favorite and just did not deliver as the heavy favorite by a half length there.
There are 2 kinds of favorites we pick against. One, when they win and people come on Twitter and remind me that I'm the biggest dope in the world and how much money they make betting on the horses that I don't like, or the kinds like Tailstone where crickets are heard after they lose at a ridiculous even money. Granted, Source ran fine and just lost by a half length, but I don't know about you. When you've picked against the Source was bet last time, going to be bet against with Javier, was claimed. Seems like a lateral claim. Both trainers are capable guys. I just don't know the big deal about this horse.
I agree with you. I thought this horse ran a decent effort last time out, but got that inside trip. And I believe that was on a day where, yes, it was an off track. It was a sloppy sealed track, but it wasn't like the rail was bad or not the place to be by any means. I thought it was pretty fair watching some of the races. So the fact, if you're arguing that, oh, well, perhaps he was on the worst part of the track that day, I don't think that that's an excuse. And Javier rode this horse to perfection last time out. Again, a lateral move. I just think he might be a vulnerable favorite. The big question is, who do you try to beat him with?
Well, we've gone in completely different directions, though. I will grant you that you may stand on some more solid ground than me. And feel free, by the way, to make fun of my ridiculous selection in this race. But I actually don't think the Dance in the Heat is completely ridiculous. The problem for Dance in the Heat is whether or not there's going to be enough pace for this horse to make a run. But I know it's low-profile connections. But you're taking a 10-pound bug rider in the first. I'm taking a trainer that's 1 for 49 in the second race. And this horse is dropping down. I love turnbacks. I think they're great bets, especially at prices. And much like the first race, where I agree with you, I don't particularly like Tailstone. There's no doubt that Shaft of Light can win this race, dropping down for George Navarro. But on the other hand, this horse doesn't have to win this race. You've put the horse second as well. I'm looking for a new face. I think Dance in the Heat fits it and will be a solid price, unlike the 3.
That was my only concern, that the 7 wasn't going to get adequate pace to run behind. But the argue could be some of the pace setters might not even be able to go. The 3 Shaft of Light might come back as he did in the past couple of starts. He showed speed and then just falters. Just doesn't seem like he has any longevity with his speed. The 5 Big Distinction has that outside speed position, and this horse is dropping in class. He's coming in off of freshening. Again, I'm just picking him because he has a nice solid workout coming in off the freshening, and he has that outside speed, and I think he could use that to his advantage.
He also chased outside last time against a gold rail, so there's certainly reasons to like him, and he drops down. I had him 4th. I could have had him higher, and the more I look at it, maybe I should have used him on my pick 5 ticket instead of a horse like the 4, who I don't really care if it beats me.
All right, well, we'll move on to the 3rd race, a nice maiden special weight, 7 furlongs on the main track. And I thought this was an interesting race. We see some horses coming back like Novique, Candy Sue, Liberty Road. But the 3 Cafetiere, this is a horse that you and I both opt for here. She was actually scratched a couple weeks ago. It was rainy, sloppy. She drew the rail. Now back in today. We'll go back and take a look at her replay from Santa Anita.
Yeah, and this is her last race, and we're going back to March of last year, so it's almost a year ago. And you're right, she was scratched on the Novique race, actually. I thought she ran fine in this race, and, you know, you're sort of relying on, A, that she ran a race that's fast enough to win. Michelle Nevin's numbers off long layoffs are adequate. She's very good on trainer switches, particularly with maidens, and you're sort of expecting the horse to show up. But I think you and I have shown the same opinion here, which is that neither one of us, and I think she just ran fine here, she didn't do anything exceptional, is that if Liberty Road, who did get a strange ride last time, and maybe Corey was riding to instructions, and Corey's ridden very, very well here at the meet, but why Liberty Road rode in a race where she was the absolute lone speed and allowed a long shot to walk on the front end and wire the field? I'm always shocked when a horse wires the field, because you would think, the way horses are ridden, that no horse has actually ever won the lead in horse racing. You think they're going to go to the lead with her today. I'm still not sure how good she is, and I want different faces, Cafetiere and Novique, who did take a little money. I know it was Javier last time, but the fact that they stay on the dirt with Novique, despite the fact that she has a turf pedigree and she has a trainer who wants to run all his horses on the turf, I think it's a good sign for her.
It is a good sign. Going back to Cafetiere really quickly here, though, and talking about, even though it was an average race that she did run against Maiden Special Weight Company, we'll actually show a little stat. Again, this is a small stat, a potent stat, but it's one to show that Michelle Nevin does win with these kind of layoffs on the dirt, and even at 7 furlongs. I know this is just says sprint distances, but all of them seem to come back off the shelf and just has hit the board, run well. I believe the only horse that finished off the board was like 20-1 and wound up a decent fifth in a big field. So she wins at the 7 furlongs coming off the shelf. I think that's a positive stat. That race seemed to be pretty productive. A couple horses won 2 other than races out of that maiden special weight. So going back to Novik, I agree with you. I think it's a positive move that they decide to keep her on the main track. And looking at her physically in the paddock, I can remember thinking that she's one that will want more distance, and that's exactly what she gets here today.
Yeah, I think she'll run better whether or not she wins or not. And listen, Liberty Road can win, but do you really need her at a short price?
I don't know. I agree with you. Last time I thought she probably should have gone to the lead and dictated in that race, and we could have seen a different outcome.
Right. I think the second horse would have won if she did that. But regardless, she would have had a better chance to win. And the idea is, why are you taking away your horse's natural advantage over a field? And there was Javier Castellano on a sort of hopeless-looking long shot on paper, taking advantage of the mistakes of others and winning a race.
Let's not dwell on the past, though.
I'm not really bitter about it. I just find it ridiculous. And I hearken back to the old days, and I was joking on Twitter that I miss Angel Cordero, but I do. Because one of the reasons that Angel was super successful was he sent speed horses to the lead. It's kind of a lost art.
It is. It really is. There's speed in those races especially is invaluable. We'll move on to the 4th race, the maiden $16,000 event. 5 furlongs onto the turf course here, and we do have a replay of Wind Warning, who should go off as your favorite here. Last time out, also, a CP Warrior was in this race, the number 3 horse.
Wind Warning, I thought, got an excellent ride by Joel here. Saving ground, angling out, having very little trouble. CP Warrior will end up finishing 4th, I think, in this race. And I do think CP Warrior is a long shot that's much more suited to getting back to the 5 furlongs. But you said to me beforehand, this was the time for Wind Warning, and I thought there were a couple of new, more interesting faces in this race, Gabby.
I agree, and maybe the argument that you could pose was maybe you wish that Joel Rosario got him out a little bit earlier at the top of the stretch, because it did look like it took him a little bit of time to get his feet back underneath of him after he had to angle out. And he should have won this race. I do think sometimes he could easily win this race once again today. He's in the reasonable class level. Again, I thought maybe, to use your words, last time was the time a little bit. So there are more intriguing newcomers here. One of them is your horse that you choose, the 6 Starship Danny.
Yeah, I mean, you and I saw the same 2 horses as the alternatives. And Wind Warning also, it's not as though his last race lives in isolation. His last race is one of a series in his career of losing races at short prices. With Starship Danny, this is a horse that this is the right distance. 2 times ago, when he ran at 5 furlongs, he had some significant trouble in that race. Last time out, he was 4 wide around the track, going 7.5. So not only does he have a trip in his last start, but he cuts back the appropriate distance. He drops down. He finds the right spot. I prefer him over Suck It Up Buster, who ran fine as 1 turf race.
Starship Danny, I agree with you. I think he's through and through a turf sprinter. The 2-turn 7.5 furlongs isn't really his cup of tea. Now, he did break from that way outside post position.
And broke slow.
Broke slowly, and short run into the first turn. So I thought he was at a disadvantage in his last race. If he duplicates his race back in September a few years ago, again, he's proven himself that he can sprint on the turf, and that's what I like about him. But the 6 Suck It Up Buster, again, looking at him, he has kind of that outside speed today. He should be forwardly placed. When he did try the turf, it was okay. It says that he veered out at the start there and he ran on. It was just okay. He was beaten by a winner who kind of won by open lengths.
Yeah, and wired him in that race, and he may be the controlling speed in this race. We'll see.
Okay, with that said, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Rainbow Pick 6, carryover $1.15 million and growing. We'll talk about the sequence right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Gulfstream today, and just re-mentioning that we do have a big carryover in the Pick 6 here, $1.15 million that starts in race 5 on today's 10-race program. I took a little stab at it. I didn't think it was an easy sequence, especially for a cheap ticket. It took me a tough time to at least find a single, and I could have used more horses in the race that I did key off of a horse, but I do really like my key horse later on today, the 3 Diamond Earring in race 9, a first level allowance race.
I wish she won last time.
Say what?
I wish she won last
I know
time.
you liked her a lot last time out. I jumped off her bandwagon last time out. Now I'm back on
No,
her
I would have hit
bandwagon.
the pick 5 if she won last time. I don't care if I liked her or not.
I remember this. But singling in race 9 gives me the ability to spread out in races 5 and 6 and even 8. I had kind of a tough time with those 3 races.
Tough races.
Using 2 horses in race 7 and capping it out with 1, 3, 7 in today's finale. So we'll talk about race 5 to kick it all off here. And scratch the 7 Boss Hog, who I really liked in here. So I'm back to the drawing board and unfortunately land into my top selection, which is the 3 Flashing Light.
Yeah, I don't think we were getting 6 to 1 on Boss Hog in this race. 6 to 5 we might have gotten, but I agree with you. I picked that horse on top as well. Flashing Light going for win number 3 in a row. I could never pick a horse going for 3 in a row.
I know. Well, I picked him second.
That's why I pick a lot of losers. Oh, you did? No, you picked him on top.
I know, with the scratch of the 7 Boss Hog, I defaulted
what
into
is your, I mean, I saw you used him on the pick 4 ticket, but I thought Inky Dinky Doo was the horse to beat, and I was going to show the replay. I didn't, but Inky Dinky Doo had significant trouble in his last race. I mean, he steadied badly last time, and he almost finished ahead of Nuke, and just thought he was the logical horse off the trouble last time out. I thought he ran very well last time, actually.
He's definitely one to use. His maiden victory did come in the slop. He's a horse that kind of ran okay races in the past. Again, he's got back class. He dropped down to a reasonable level for the first time and got the victory against Maiden Company. The thing about these types of races is they go so in and out of form. One horse can beat the other horse who they lost to last time out, so I think you have to spread with a couple different horses. The 3 Flashing Light has just been on a really good streak. However, claimed out of a high percentage barn and gets from Luis Saez, who rode this horse to perfection the past couple of starts. There are a couple of negatives with it.
I did put the stat up. Yeah, this bothered me a great deal. I don't like this trainer's stat. This trainer's 3 for 40 off the claim on the dirt. And it's switching, with all due respect, from one of the top riders in the country to an apprentice rider or an ex-apprentice that's just off his apprentice. And I think there's a lot of negatives and intangibles there. Obviously, the horse can win. I'm curious to what you like about Carupano on the rail, because that horse is going to be a gigantic price in here.
He should be a gigantic price, but he's never particularly run against this level of horse before. And he's another one who, last time out, again, he really didn't have any excuses. He was beaten significantly behind Bezded's Pride, but a couple of those horses did come back out of the race. I believe Bezded's Prize was a big class dropper from a other than allowance optional claiming company. He draws a good inside post. Again, I'm grasping at straws. These are tricky races.
Not a good post if the rail is dead. I think the 9 Dina Salsa is a player in this race, and I agree. A very tricky race.
With that, we'll move on to race 6. That does kick off the late pick 5, 50-cent pick 5, and you have a ticket, so let's start off with that. I
got to tell you, and I can see that I don't even have considered your top choice in here. This is a very tough race, this race.
That's why I used 4 horses in the first 2 legs.
A lot of horses can, you know, somebody asked me on Twitter last night, what do you think of this horse? You didn't use the horse? And I said, as I said when I talked about that race, this is a wide open race. I'm staying towards the inside. I don't trust Bold Bid. It's 7.5 furlongs around 2 turns off the layoff, but it's kind of the worst to beat. I think Vegas is interesting. We'll get to. I'm going to single in the last race, and we'll get to that. And I'm going to spread in some of these other races, but it's not an easy sequence. And I'm not going to put in a $96 ticket in what I think is a sequence where I feel like you're better off going small than putting either you go big or small, but a middle-sized ticket's not going to do me a lot much more good.
You just find yourself wasting money, quite frankly, and trying to make a case for horses that are kind of impossible. I think with the race, the pick 6 and the pick 5, you have to maybe have a confident outlook and really be aggressive with these.
That's why you play multiple tickets if you're going to truly be successful playing pick 5s and pick 6s and even pick 4s, because what you're going to do with these tickets, every horse, you like every horse the same. With the multiple tickets, you're going to be able to weight your play based on who you like. So you're giving yourself a chance to be smart in a couple of races and give yourself a real chance to hit it. When you're playing that ticket, you've got to pretty much be smart throughout. And frankly, despite what the standards people may hold you and I to, we're not going to be smart in a super high percentage of the race. We're going to be dumb in an awful lot of them. That's the nature of horse playing. And the only people that are expected to be smart, apparently, are public handicappers who apparently have declared themselves geniuses. We're not declaring ourselves geniuses. We're just as fallible as you guys.
Okay, well, back to race 6
You're a
here.
genius. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. The one bold bid, I agree with you, is the horse to beat. Has been maintaining really positive workouts in the morning at Palm Meadows. But again, they get this horse. He's coming off a layoff, draws the inside post. He's coming out of Maiden Special Weight Company, immediately dropping in for that $35,000 tag. First time out of the Mark Casse barn. So there are a couple question marks. I went to the 4 Boca Scuttlebutt here. Not crazy about the name, but if you look at the past couple of races, this is...
Are you the subject of Boca Scuttlebutt?
No.
Is there something? Is there a story here you want to tell us about?
I have no idea what the story is about. But
well, you're sensitive to names. So
over 16. Okay, this horse is over 16. Not really a horse that I would opt for, but is getting a huge class relief for the first time in a long time. Last time that he did face maiden claimers, he was a decent second, and he was bet down to a very short price. So obviously the public respected him that day. He's an interesting horse. He should be tactically placed towards the inside. I could see the 2 Vegas making a strong case for him as well. He's coming out of a tough maiden special weight last time out.
Listen, I picked Furious Warrior. The truth is there isn't really that much difference between the PPs of Furious Warrior and the PPs of Boca Scuttlebutt. So I can't. How can I? I can't argue against the 4.
If
and the 4 will be a better price.
Will be a better price, and he's coming out of tougher races, whereas Furious Warriors has already dropped in for lower level maiden claimers.
Fair enough. The last time, well, but it's been in some maiden claiming. I mean, should have won on September 25th at Belmont. Furious Warrior. He got a slow pace, and he got very unlucky to lose that race. I picked Vegas on top. Was 3 to 4 wide last time out in its race. I know that was last April. Has an inside position. I'm hoping the 1-2 are going to be forwardly placed in this race, but we could talk for hours about this race. And at the end of the day, there's a lot going on here, and there's no single horse here that stands on any kind of solid ground.
Including the 5 Princess Senatus. This is a horse who tries to get to the turf for the first time, but again, he's a horse that Josie Carroll, fantastic horse.
He was disgraceful
he was bad
last time. I mean, he was lugging in the stretch. It's almost like he said, "No, guys, I know you're trying to hand me a win.
Yes.
I don't want it."
A different service for the first time, but I agree with you that I just don't think he's he's not a very good horse, and he's going to have to prove a lot to me today. We'll move on to the 7th race, 16,000 non-winners, a 3 lifetime event, 5 furlongs onto the turf course here, and believe we do have a replay going back to the 5 April Rose.
Yeah, well, look at April Rose. I wanted to show that race, the last turf sprint, and this was back in November, and we'll talk about it at Gulfstream West. I don't know what was going on in this race. And first of all, she's a horse that has more early speed, and it just seemed like she's the 2 horse. An awful lot of time was sort of spent falling out of the race as opposed to being competitive here. Did you have any thoughts on this trip? I just wanted to show it and see if you had any thoughts and let the viewers watch it and make their own conclusions.
I did think that she was going to be very forwardly placed in there, but it almost looked like they were aggressive trying to get her into position.
A little bit. I don't know. Maybe.
The short comment is reluctant to load. Perhaps
she was bearing out here, too.
She was. Perhaps something happened before the race while they were loading, and she just didn't get into that tactical position early. But
don't you think she would have been last? I'm sorry, but don't you think she would have been last, beaten 10 lengths at this point?
Yes. And the fact that going into that race again, she did kind of regather herself. I don't know, Andy. I really didn't know what to do with her. I'm just hoping that she gets back to some of her early speed, and perhaps she had a couple of excuses. But the fact that she did show a little bit of late closing energy, I thought was an advantage.
Right, and listen, beaten 2 lengths in a 5 furlong race, finishing 7th, you could spread it out over a longer race, but at the end of the day, it just looked like she was going to finish nowhere, and maybe she had an issue. She's not a dirt horse, so going back to the right surface. With a drop down, there has to be a bit of a question whether or not there's more going on than just needing turf, but I still put her on top, as did you.
You used the force some roar here, and I just couldn't go back to her, at least for top couple of selections. I just thought that she got a perfect trip last time out, and she didn't deliver.
I don't disagree. She should have won last time out. I just liked her better than anybody else.
The 8 Coco's Wildcat, this is one who broke from the way outside there and is in her turf debut. She really didn't pick up her feet in that race, but the new connections have obviously improved her. She ran well last time out, so a grasping at straws, but she is by Wildcat Air and out of a mare who actually produced 3 turf winners.
You know, I left her in there. I only saw one turf winner.
Sorry,
but,
a turf winner that won 3 times.
Yarmorka, here's the thing. You say I can't take some roar after her last race, and I hear you. But Yarmorka was worse. She had a perfect trip, too.
She did.
And she broke a little slow, but she was bad in there.
First off the claim, though, new rider as well, Elvis Trujillo. There are a couple of different changes, and not that they're positive or negative, but it is a new face in a sense. We'll move on to the 8th race, 30,000, 9 winners at 2 lifetime, a mile and a 16th on the turf course. I had an interesting time with this race as well. I know you have an opinion on the 3. Go ahead. Tell me. Sell me on the 3 here.
I have the same opinion as you. This race is impossible.
Yes, it is. It is. It's absolutely impossible. So I think you have to approach it. I don't know. I think I used 4 horses in this race. The 1 could win. The 3 could win. 5, 6, 8. But this is the kind of race that you want to go with a horse that might give you a little bit of value. And I agree with you on your angle with the 3. I actually use this horse.
You don't agree that strongly. It's
No.
okay. You know, by the way, you are allowed to disagree with me.
No, but
I'm the obnoxious jerk. You're the nice person. I'm nice to you. You're allowed to point out that I'm picking a ridiculous. It's very easy for me, Gabby. We'll show the stat for Dale Romans.
Okay,
and this
we'll
stat worked for us before. And what's interesting is it's Silver Dagger, the horse that beat Vea in the last race. And there's the possibility that maybe the same thing will happen to Vea. Dale Romans has a great record, first time for a tag on the turf. This horse has never run this cheaply, and I'm looking for a hook in this race. So for me, it's very easy. I'm going to hope that Dave Hope, who's ran okay, no better, or sometimes worse than the others here, is maybe a new face in here. That's good enough for me, because handicapping this race is very hard because so many of them look the same. And Vea is a horse that just never seems to win, so I can't put that horse on top.
I agree. The 3, my only concern with that horse is that he's just not very fast. He's going to need a well-timed move. Will he get that pace that he needs in front of him? Maybe with the class drop, he could find himself a little bit more forwardly placed. I can't fault you. He draws a good post. The 8 Mexican Groove, I'm going with a horse who doesn't really like to win, but he's 10-1. I think you should be able to get a decent price, and his race overall wasn't awful last time out, and he gets a better post today. He was reserved slightly down on the inside, but he split horses late behind a runaway winner that won by over 4 lengths.
What Battle Red, or you have second, is on my pick 4 ticket. Our pick 5 ticket. I'm scared of this horse wire in the field. Kathleen O'Connell is 0 for 16 off the claim on turf. 4 hitting the board. It was an 8-5 shot the other day that finished off the board. It shouldn't have been 8-5, but still was a favorite in that race. That concerns me. And also, it's not just that. This is a horse who was always a bit of a loser, whose form has completely eluded him, but he is going to be loose in the lead in this race.
He's going to be loose on the lead, and that's why I had to respect him in the top couple. But the 0 for 16 record there, first off the claim on the turf, really did kind of hinder me. I wanted to pick him on top.
Can this horse run at all anymore? Rock Eagle, by the way, is a cursed horse because he always gets the far outside post.
I know.
And Barclay Tagg must have been happy that he got this post because he's like, at least it's not just me. He was horrifically bad last time, which is why they dropped him, and now he's dropped even further off the claim. But if he woke up today and he said, you know, I used to be able to run a little bit, he could win this race.
And maybe he's getting to a firmer ground. He does draw that outside post, but he was so bad last time out. I just couldn't go back to him here today.
Terrible. I mean, he was hampered by the post, and certainly it was tough for Johnny, but Johnny actually got great position with him. I thought Johnny did an amazing job getting position with him, and he got him to run, and he was awful.
He didn't pick up his feet whatsoever, but so a hard one to use. I'm taking a stand against him, at least in terms of those multi-race sequences.
Let's go to the 9th race and relive past pain.
Okay,
and start out by looking at the replay of Guy Meniering's last race. And this was one of the ultimate they knew races of the meet. That the winner, Pursuing Fire, who improved his buyer figure 20 points to win this race, the one horse, that this horse was 4-1, was one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Guy Meniering is actually 5th at this point, out in the middle of the track going nowhere, and almost wins the race. Not only that, isn't she supposed to be forwardly placed today? An inside post, much less speed in the race, and I think this horse is actually okay.
I honestly think that she fits the flow of the race a little bit better today than what she did last time out. And overall, I thought it was a big performance. And you see a type of filly here. And I kind of liked her first off the layoff. And looking at her, it almost looked like she was kind of a bigger filly type of thing. Maybe a horse that will get better with a couple of starts under her belt in the afternoon. And that's what she's proving, at least to me, that she just needs a couple of races into the sequence to finally get back to her form. But when she first started out, her races were good against Maiden Special Weight Company, against Allowance, allowance company at Belmont.
The race at Saratoga was very. She runs that Saratoga race. She will win this race, and they need to use her speed in here. Having said that, I think there's others. You and I disagree about the other horses in the race. I don't think Dark and Winding Road is impossible off the layout for Bill Ma. I respect Bill. I've got to use the 9 as one of my dopey turnbacks, though this horse does have the look of a layoff horse using a sprint as a prep.
Where do you think the 2 Dark and Winding Road is going to be placed, though? Because really didn't show any speed sprinting at 6 furlongs, then kind of wired the field in debut. Do you think they have to go in order to win?
They should go. If the 3 wants to go, let her go and take back behind her. There's no big speed in here. From that post and her, they've got to go. And I'm always scared of these Bill Mott horses because he's a guy who could really improve them off the layoff. They could go either way. She may not be that good. She take a step forward. As far as your horse, Romantic Vision, I looked at. Rusty Arnold has great numbers off of maiden wins, but this one just seemed too slow to me.
Very slow, and again, this horse is only really shown herself on a off track.
But you don't know what she can do on a dry track.
Exactly. So there's a couple question marks there. So I'm using her. Rusty Arnold does a great job bringing these horses back, and he's actually had a very good meet down here in South Florida.
His horses have run very well down here. I agree.
Race 10, the final race of the day, an open $25,000 claiming event, and your favorite 5 furlong turf sprint.
I love a 5 furlong turf sprint. Well, it's the only distance I could actually probably run in less than a week.
That's true. That is true.
It's sort of, I really like Wishada, and I'm happy to single this horse in the race. If she loses, that's okay, because this is the kind of horse I just like in here. She's run against significantly better horses in her races. I thought her 5 furlong sprint, she got a bit of a, I'm not exactly sure what the heck was going on in that race, and I think Tyler get her in a good position in this race, and I just like Wishada. To me, I've got the 11 and 1 second and third. I could use a whole slew of horses besides the 3, so I'll just single.
I agree with you, though. Going back and watching the replay for Wishada,
what was going on?
A couple starts back, it almost looked like the rider just kind of
gave up on her
in the last couple of strides there, and I didn't think that was a really confident move. So I love the fact that Tyler Gaffleone does get aboard her today. She's coming in fresh with the blinkers on.
Ran well going long.
She did, but the 1, Rosebud's Tiger, she actually ran against that filly in there, and I thought there was more of an excuse for the 3 as well. But Mike Petro with Frank Calabrese, some of these claims, even though a really subpar performance last time out, it's not her surface. She's never run well on the main track before, and now she's getting to a preferred
private purchase, not a claim.
Sorry, private purchase.
Which might be even more interesting in a funny way.
And the interesting thing about this horse, draws a nice inside post, and we've seen this a couple times at the meet. Her form's been a little bit darkened in the past couple of starts, and the discrepancy in odds that you're probably going to get between the 1 and the 3, I prefer to get the bigger price.
All fair points. I could have moved her second. If I had talked to you earlier, I might have moved her second, and I'd certainly use her as a backup a little bit more than Capriasso. And then 11 Capriasso, a new face. It has a little bit of turf pedigree and gets it from the sire as well. Thought might be a little dangerous first-time turf.
7, Chesson is taking a drop in class, but should show that speed. She very well could. She has that outside speed. Does anybody decide to go with her on the inside?
I find myself a little bit prejudiced against Wesley Ward's horses in these races, not because I think Wesley's not a good trainer, because he is, but because he's just a guy whose horses always seem to take too much money.
They do.
And he just seems like a perennial underlay. I picked this horse 4th. He certainly could win the rare. She could. I'm not, but I just feel like he's one of these guys. I hate it when I like one of his horses because they're always seem to be overbet.
They are. So you're taking a stand there, singling the 3 in the last leg of the sequence and the pick 5. I love it. Can't fault you for that. Once again, we do have a big carryover in the Rainbow 6. I would imagine they're going to bet this heavily today with a carryover $1.15 million. And a reminder, big carryover in the Rolling Super High 5, $59,000 in that. It does not start in race 1. It starts in race 2. Lots of action.
Thanks, Ron.
You're very welcome. I've changed a lot in the past couple of days. Thank you once again for joining us here on Gulfstream today. We're going to take a quick break, and Larry Colmus will be back. I haven't seen Larry in a couple days, in a week, actually.
I think Larry heard your back, and he left.
Thank you. Thanks.
Maybe he doesn't know we're racing today.
Hopefully he's back. I don't know. We'll go find him so he can come up and give you all those scratches and changes. Best of luck on today's 10-race program.